to hear it.
Thank you very much, Chris. That's a pleasure to be with you today. And hello, Stephane. I just want to be very brief here. I want to do a shout out to Dancing Joy, Felix Ruiz, Chris, Chris Barnes, Jorge Ramos, Lenny, Mel, all the people that were today into the Eden Fractal event and at 13 UTC every Wednesday, the Eden Fractal. That's a nice group that helped to empower Eden on EOS by giving some EOS and respect NFTs made by Chris and Felix. So I want to just make a big shout out, and I invite Felix and Dancing Joy to speak later on about Eden Fractal. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. There's always the community open mic at the end of the show where we invite everyone from the community to jump in, say hi, talk about their projects. For now, we're going to get into launching the show. Kind of threw me off here, but I love it when you guys jump on and say hi for sure. So welcome to the EOS Fireside chat. Today's August 31st. And we're here like we are every week talking with the EOS community, talking about the current events and the news that happened in the last 7 days. So so today on the agenda, it's actually a short agenda. We may not go 2 hours, but we may surprise ourselves as well. We've got the Road to 10K article that came out yesterday, talking about the Discord server actually, and how we recently reached 5,000 members and how we're thrown out some incentives for the next 5,000 members. So we'll be talking a bit about that. Also going over the Pop Token article that was released 2 weeks ago. A few updates on there. I'll invite you guys to share the EOS meme magic that's been going around the last few weeks in the EOS community. Some great memes out there. Would love for you guys to share those in the chat today. And then we've got some hackathon updates from Chris, and the Yield Plus pilot phase is live. So Denis will jump on. Or maybe Denis will not jump on this week, but we'll be quickly talking about that. So starting off the show today, Road to 10K. So building the EOS community server Discord. So I'm going to share the link here in the stream chat, which you can find by clicking the voice chat and then finding the stream chat in the top right corner. And I'm going to share a link here to the article in case you missed it yesterday. Basically, what we're doing is we're activating a leaderboard for people who invite community members to the EOS Discord server. So you can create your own custom invite link in Discord, and then you can use that link to invite friends, family, other people in social media to join us here on the EOS community Discord. We'll be tracking the invites, and we'll be awarding prizes to people as we reach 6,000 members, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, all the way up to 10,000 members. So we just reached 5,000 members a few days ago. And the growth rate has definitely accelerated compared to, let's say, a few months ago. So that's definitely nice to see. A lot of work has been done, on CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, all of these places are now pointing to the correct places instead of to the old EOS links. And so this Discord server is getting a lot more attention lately, which we love to see. All right, so of course I invite you guys to go read the article. Nothing too crazy about it. Just make sure you create that custom link and then share it with friends and on social media. Invite people to join the EOS Discord server. And invite them to join these fireside chats. Love to see you guys in here, and we're always getting new people in these chats, which is also great to see. Okay, moving on to the Pop Token article. Actually, that article was published a few weeks ago. Just wanted to remind you guys that the monthly raffle is up next week. If you show up to these fireside chats in Discord, you get to claim your Pop Token every week. So you go to the pop bot chat here on Discord and you write your EOS account name with a money sign in front of it. And then you get to accumulate pop tokens, which you can blend 4 of into a monthly raffle ticket. So I've just shared the link down there in the stream chat for those who want to blend their pop tokens for a raffle ticket. You will notice a new image to the community NFT collection. So we've finally been able to update that after a little while with a bug in the UI. And so you'll find that at the link I shared below. Also, actually, some unfortunate news that I just learned this morning regarding backed NFTs on Atomic Hub. So backed NFTs is a function of the Atomic asset that allows you to embed some tokens in an NFT, and whoever owns that NFT can claim those tokens by burning the NFT. And that's how we've been distributing our prizes for these monthly raffles, is by backing these EOS prize NFTs with 10 actual EOS in them, allowing people to, keep their prize in their personal collection for street cred, or burn it and bank that 10 EOS for whatever they want to do with that 10 EOS, right? So it's actually, we're probably not going to be able to continue using that format to distribute the prize. We're probably just going to have to send straight EOS to you guys. And the reason for that is because Atomic Hub has some legal concerns regarding backed assets on their platform. And so while the capacity to back these NFTs with tokens like EOS or WAX will still be possible on the contract level. So you can still go through blocks, or through command line, or through the bounty block tool and back your assets that way. However, the Atomic Hub user interface is not going to show them, which kind of ruins the whole point, in my opinion. So they're doing this because backed assets are actually not used very much. It has very low usage compared to all of the other types of NFTs that exist out there. And then there's some legal considerations where NFTs may be considered regulated differently in the crypto space compared to fungible tokens, like, for example, WAX or EOS or Bitcoin, right? So because of these potential regulations coming down, the Atomic Hub team prefers to just avoid that headache and just phase out the backed assets from their platform. So that's going to impact a bit how we distribute our prizes, which is too bad because I really enjoyed these trophies backed with EOS that we were able to hand out. Anyways, not too big of a deal, but I figured I'd mention it while we were talking about these monthly raffles. All right,
Hey,
yeah.
Steph,
So like I said, yes. Hi.
real quick, could you provide is there some more info on that that I could read on?
There is. I don't have the link super handy right now, but Jonah from Atomic Hub did do a interview recently, and on YouTube, and I watched it earlier today. The clip. I'm gonna find it real quick, and I'll share in the chat there when I do. But there's not too much information known yet outside of what I just shared. And but there is, what did they say? They did invite me to join this Friday at 19 UTC, a Twitter Spaces event where Jonah will address the community questions and concerns regarding any updates we're planning. So if you want to learn more, that's where you can learn more. And as for the video, I just found it here and I'm going to share it in the stream chat right there.
Thank you.
Were you planning on using backed tokens, or are you already using backed tokens?
Yeah, we started backing NFTs for the Eden Fractal with EOS, and we found that as a great way to, in a way, I've envisioning it as adding TVL to Eden. So you're locking up the tokens into the NFT, and then that's a way to see, hey, Eden members, we're serious about EOS for the long haul, and we're locking up EOS tokens into our NFTs. So that's kind of unfortunate, but we'll find an alternative.
So, you can still do it, especially if you're, displaying them on your own platform, then that would be fine. But of course, the fun is to see your NFTs alongside all the other NFTs when you're visiting Atomic Hub. So, yeah, seems like for now it's going to be the end of backed NFTs. What's the okay? CAC here in the chat asks, what's the difference between tokens/coins and backed NFTs? The NFT is worthless, just has the value of the underlying coins. Sounds ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, then we can debate the merits of this regulation or how to interpret what is a fungible token, what is a non-fungible token, etc. and stuff. I guess those would be good questions to ask the Atomic Hub team on Friday if you want to learn more about their stance on that. I couldn't really, I can't offer more color than that, really. All right, yeah. So EOS memes. I've seen a lot of you guys in here sharing some great memes in the last week or two about EOS. We are streaming this show on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, and the way Yana has it set up is that the stream chat is part of what you see when you watch the stream. So for those that can't be in Discord with us, although I encourage you to join us on Discord, you can still watch us on these other streams. It's nice for them watching, the visually to see a bunch of memes strolling in the stream chat. So definitely encourage you guys to, share some memes from time to time as your way of contributing, to this fireside chat. I always enjoy seeing these hilarious memes. For example, this Pump It one from Marty B, a classic crypto meme with Yves' face edited into it. Slightly freaky for me to look at, but high quality edits and high quality memes for sure. So yeah, let's see more of those. And these are tweets by Trimbot, so you can even go out and retweet them, of course. Round of applause for all the great EOS memes in the last few
You
weeks.
definitely feel that the quality of meme production went up there a little bit. I'm not sure who can take credit for this, but somewhere there's a meme factory for the EOS community. I hope they keep them coming.
Yeah, absolutely. We had Dave on our team actually get in there and remaster a meme earlier this week, which he loved the meme, but it was too low quality for his standards. So we got in there and remastered it high def. It was really great. Maybe we can share that one with Yves there riding on the shark, blasting away at everything. All right. Oh, Pabio, I'm gonna have to server mute you, but thanks for joining the fireside. Yeah, it's Chris
Yeah, baby
Barnes
is the
in the
best meme.
house. Yeah, baby. Chris Barnes, you want to share some hackathon updates with us?
I would love to. Thank you,
Awesome.
Stephane. Definitely, just one thing that you mentioned about the regulations, KYC, AML. These are they're like such a hindrance to progress. I swear, I think we all feel it, right? Like we should all be aligned in one direction in terms of the enemy here, and all of crypto should be aligned against the regulators because they slow things down. I'm working on something right now that will be very beneficial, and it's now stuck at this KYC, AML piece. And how do you kind of solve this problem? And yeah, you need to be creative and do some workarounds, but kind of sucks to hear that it's affecting something like Atomic Asset and Hub. Anyway, okay, EVM Ideathon. This is the big event coming up. I hope everyone is getting excited. It's going to go live on September 19th, so that is when the event will kick off. So we've got that settled, so put it on your calendar. It's got 2 tracks. So it's got the Ideathon track, which is essentially an idea. So it makes it really easy. This is a super low barrier to entry, 0 code requirement to actually participate in a hackathon. So I know there's a ton of folks on this call who have probably wanted to do hackathons. And first of all, you need to show up at a physical location. That's resolved. This is virtual. And you may not think of yourself as a developer and think that, you need to be a developer in order to participate in a hackathon. Well, here's your chance. You do not need to be one. You just need to have a brain, which I think everyone here probably has one. Well, if you're an EOS fan, you surely do. So that's the one track. The other one's going to be a more traditional hackathon centered around the Trust EVM. So there'll be 2 tracks. One's an ideathon, one's a hackathon. Combined prizes are 250K USD and EOS prizes. And additionally, all the winners will also receive access to a customized Helios incubator program, which I think anybody who's heard about the program, there's been great success and reviews from people who participate in terms of building out their project, their pitch, what their go-to-market strategy, how they're going to acquire customers, just some of the questions that a lot of projects maybe don't quite do the diligence that are required to really build a profitable, long-term, sustainable business. So we're going to provide that to all the winners. Some of the other details. So in general, it's an 8-week event. So when it opens on September 19th, registrations will open, and we'll do an opening ceremony describing the event, getting everybody familiar with how it's going to work, where you go to sign up. If you want to have a team and you haven't been able to find one, there's a way to do that. So that'll happen. And then throughout the 6 weeks of the event itself, where you have 6 weeks to work on your project, your proposal for both tracks, that they'll be due on October 31st. So, but during those 6 weeks, we'll be having a series of basically seminars. So the seminars there'll be 5 of them in total, and they're more specifically kind of focused on the Ideathon track. So again, because there's 2 separate events sort of combined into one, the hackathon for the Trust EVM is very much focused on GameFi. So when you're looking to contribute and submit a proposal to that side, you'll need to focus on GameFi. So, and GameFi can mean many things to many people, but in the end, it's sort of basically play to earn application where the users, let's see, what's my definition here? Play to earn blockchain games that provide mechanics to yield economic incentive for players to play and interact with the game. So that's what's going to be for the Trust EVM side. And then of course the Ideathon, we haven't quite settled in on the categories for the Ideathon. But stay tuned for next week. We'll drop some alpha if you want a bit of a head start to get your brain churning on what ideas you could focus on. Next week's Fireside Chat, we will announce the 4 or 5 categories with descriptions, so a little extra alpha for our community that others won't get. And then, like I said, we'll have throughout the event itself, there'll be 5 different seminars, and these will be a live, sort of like just a Zoom link, or I think we'll end up doing on YouTube, would be live interacting with the comments. We'll do a design thinking workshop, which is sort of something, step 1, if you're thinking about an idea, what are the do's and don'ts of coming up with an idea that could be turned into an actual project? So that'll be step 1. Then we'll do an EOS/Antelope technical overview. That will be, because even though your idea doesn't need to have any code, one of the judging criteria is feasibility. Like, can you actually build this thing? Can it be built on EOS or Antelope? And so that was something you will need to kind of factor into your idea. So even though there's no code required, you do kind of need to have some sort of semblance of feasibility that it can actually be built. And we'll do a tokenomics gamification workshop, so folks can get more acquainted with the ideas of if you are going to include a token and taking advantage of that aspect of a blockchain, tokens, then that'll give you a high level view of that to consider in your idea. Then finally, we'll do a pitch deck workshop, which is the whole Ideathon is going to culminate in a live Shark's Tank style event where folks will present live to hopefully a ton of us watching to the judging, and basically be judged live, ask some questions, and have the winners sort of decided in real time in this live event, which will be delivering a pitch like you would to a VC. So you want to create that pitch. So we'll do a session on a pitch deck workshop. And then there'll also be an additional session on community development and marketing. And so as you want to consider how you're going to acquire customers and who is your target customer and how you're going to build out this idea, if it was to get built, this will help you there. So that's quite a bit. And I don't want to give away too much of the details. So in terms of the categories and the judging and pieces that you really want to consider to how you're going to win this, that will come later. So stay tuned to these Fireside Chats, because this is where we're dropping the alpha.
Yeah,
That was great. That was a fantastic update. You've got me pretty excited. This sounds like an amazing event, actually. A little bit of something for everyone. Developers, non-developers, people who just want to learn all these great workshops you guys are putting on, super valuable skills in the crypto industry, and or just for people who are interested in these topics, and not necessarily even people who are building projects. So yeah, sounds like a really, really great event. Looking forward to it.
And you know what I should do? I want to just say thanks, because this was and is really a community originated idea. And this whole thing, big thanks to Phoenix. Also, he's John Paul here in Discord. He's the guy who kicked this all off. He built out a whole really well done framework. So kudos to you, dude. You thanked me, but really we need to thank you because you're the reason this is happening, because you kicked this off. So big props to you. And also big shout out to Brandon Lovejoy, who wrote this excellent summary article that we're all seeing shared across Twitter. So big thanks to him as well.
Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. Yeah, I might actually have to now join and participate. I remember many months ago I said, oh, that'd be great to have a hackathon for non-devs like myself to participate in. And then when you were talking, explaining all the things, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to join now. And I was like, oh, do I have time? I'm pretty busy. I don't know. And then I was like, maybe I won't join. But then I actually do want to present Shark's Tank style, like do my pitch and my idea to all of these players in the EOS ecosystem. That sounds really fun. I want to just get on that stage and give it a shot. So yeah, so maybe I will after all.
You totally are going to have to, dude. Come on now. And just so people understand too, that way it works is your final submission will be a recorded video of you delivering your pitch. So you'll create a pitch deck, and then you'll record yourself or your team or whoever you want to do it, delivering that pitch deck, 5 to 7 minutes. And that's kind of all you need to submit. Those will get reviewed because we've got 2 weeks worth of judging basically. So those will all get reviewed. And then at the last day on November 14th, I believe, is when we'll have it so that the top of each of the categories, so we won't have decided who first, second, third is, and they'll get the chance then to pitch live. So first you do a recording, create a deck, we pick you, and then you do it live. And I think that could be you, Steph.
Wow, that sounds really nice. Great format, actually. Love it. Are all these pitches going to be public, or is that going to be private? And then, as the community, we only get to see the top 3 kind of on that finals day, or how's that going to play out?
I think they're all public. So we're using DevPost as a platform. So I'm pretty sure they're all there. And what we'd like to do too is during those 2 weeks when we're deliberating as judges, we don't want them to be dead air time. So we want to kind of really this is the idea, even though this is our first attempt at this, kind of want to make it a big event. And so during that 2-week judging, I think we'd like to do some almost live review. You can watch the judges go through it, the comments they make, try to do some interaction during the judging period itself. So ideally, yeah, all these pitches will be made public to everybody.
So on DevHub is cool. The ability for community to vote on projects. So during that live period, since everything's public, the community can also chime in and browse through everything and kind of give their little rubber stamp on whatever they feel they enjoy the most.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, looking forward to it. It's gonna be dope. For sure. Oh, actually, one thing, Chris, I don't know if you slipped up or if I misunderstood, but you said there was 250K USD in prizes. On the tweet here from ENF today, it says 125K.
I must have.
Do you know what that's about?
I don't know. My math in my brain decided to times it by 2. Yeah, it's 125. Thank you. So
2 tracks.
Yeah, 2 tracks, 125. It's a 75K for the Ideathon and 50K for the Trust EVM Hackathon.
Wow, so the Ideathon has more prize money available than the hackathon. Yep. Wow. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Hope to see a lot of you guys in here joining these fireside chats. Give it a shot. Yeah, it sounds fun, and I'm really looking forward to seeing these pitches. Anyone here planning on joining? Maybe jump in here, say hi. So I guess we don't know the guidelines or the topic for the Ideathon yet. That's going to be released on the 19th. Is that how it goes?
Well, no, I'm gonna drop that next week. So we're gonna give an advance. So those who are on this, I mean, of course, it might get shared on Twitter and YouTube, but generally speaking, we want to give kind of advanced alpha to this community. This is our most loyal group, so you guys get the extra time to think about your ideas. But there'll be 4 or 5 categories with the intention of making them basically as broad as possible. Because one of the big things here, part of the EOS comeback, is bringing back the eyeballs of people who are outside of our community who have kind of sloughed EOS off, and we want people to come back with a fresh look. So that's why if you look at the name, it doesn't actually mention EOS or Trust, as it's EVM is generic. So in the top of someone's email inbox when they get this, and they might be in Ethereum magazine, they're going to look at that and not immediately just delete the email. They might open it up and read through it. So we want to have as much participation as possible, so that the topics are going to be as broad as possible, so everybody's idea can be included. So it does two things: brings in a ton more people, we hope, gets everybody who's here to engage, because everyone's got some sort of idea. And the other thing is, there might be some wicked ideas that come out of this, and these actually these could turn into actual projects that get built on EOS. So the long-term play that this could turn into, like there might be a second follow-on hackathon that's deliberately about taking these ideas and coding them. Like this, this is just step one of what could be a long project to really deliver value to our ecosystem.
Very cool, very cool. So that you said there was going to be 4 categories? So
4 or 5. Not quite
4 or
decided.
5, so
we're just hammering out the details and the descriptions of each, but we're real close. So next week we'll have it ready.
And then a certain amount of prize money per category. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Interesting too, because we have this kind of funnel going on where this is an ideathon. You're supposed to come and bring ideas, which then you can either bring to Pomelo, the grant framework, or Helios's incubator, or any of the other funding mechanisms which are now finally available within the ecosystem. And this is just kind of pushing people into that direction.
Yeah, it's all coming together nicely for sure. Any more thoughts from the crowd or from anyone on these hackathons? Feel free to jump in.
I just wanted to say I'm very glad that the
Do you have a
ideathon
criteria for the hello?
Sorry, 2 people jump in here. Please say your name when you also jump in, and that'll help a bit with the confusion. Shanzz, I saw you jump on the mic here.
Okay.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Do you have like a set of criteria? The reason I'm asking is because recently I took part in a hackathon, and I guess some judge didn't show up, and they randomly selected the winners. So I was wondering what you give before the hackathon starts.
I think I got some of that. You broke up a bit. Basically, so the judges, I'm glad you brought up judges. In the pre-judging, so the final live judging session, we've got judges selected for that. However, pre-judging will be something that I'm open to receive if people think they want to be a judge to help out, because we might end up, if this is successful, we could have hundreds and hundreds of entrants, which is what we want, right? So there's an opportunity to select a few trusted community members to assist with that judging. If you're interested in maybe being a judge, shoot me a PM, and I'm open to collecting some folks in the community to assist with that. In terms of randomly picking winners, that will not happen. There's no chance. We're gonna pick, especially because it's live for the ideathon. So that would look pretty sketch if we just flip a dice.
No,
but,
I was.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Doug. Because the voice broke up. I was asking criteria. For judging.
Yeah, so there will be criteria. That's what I was saying. So we're gonna announce the categories next week, and then probably the criteria the week after. But most certainly there will be specific, deliberate criteria for both the Trust EVM Hackathon and the Ideathon. So they won't be quite the same between the 2 tracks, but absolutely there will be criteria that will have weighted voting based on each criteria. Yeah.
Hey, this is Andrew, aka Drew Block. I just wanted to say what I said earlier, but without 2 people speaking at the same time. Very stoked that the Ideathon is happening, because I think that's a great way to involve all sorts of people in the EOS ecosystem who aren't necessarily developers.
even the dog getting in there, cheering on the Ideathon. Love it. Thanks for jumping in here, Andrew. All right, well, we'll move on to the next topic, which is actually the last topic on my list. It's only been half an hour, and it's not even a big topic really, but it's an important one. There's just not too much to share about it, and that is that the Yield Plus program is now live, and the additional yield is being distributed to the protocols that have signed up and qualified. So congrats. Congrats to the Yield Plus team. You know, they did a great blue paper, really thorough, maybe one of the most thorough blue papers or analysis, document in all of crypto, researching these yield incentive programs. And then they were able to deliver on this Yield Plus program fairly quickly. So it's great to see, from idea to market, and now the Yield Plus program is live, and extra rewards are being distributed to the protocols. Unfortunately, I don't think Denis is with us this week. I would have loved to hear about it from him a bit. But if anyone else here has any thoughts to share on Yield Plus, feel free to do that.
It's too bad Denis not here, because I wanted to ask. I noticed like DeFi Box has 4 separate individually qualifying applications, I guess, out of the 7 that are there so far. And I was wondering if was that like intended, that a single project like DeFi Box could have multiple recipient aspects to pull into that? Because I think it's neat if that's intentional. Well, it seems like it must be intentional, but certainly good to let, I think, the other potential DeFi apps out there to kind of keep that in mind, that you can have multiple submissions to receive the yield, not just your overarching DApp.
Yeah, exactly. So I've actually discussed this with Denis. So I think I can answer is that these yield programs are designed not to reward the protocol in its entirety, but different DeFi applications. So if we look here at tokenyield.io, which is where you can see.
It's the opposite. So it's not the DeFi application, it's the DeFi protocol. So a single under the umbrella of a single application, there could be multiple protocols and multiple strategies. So it's really there. Each protocol has its own unique smart contract. It has its own unique deposit account that's being tracked with the time-based oracles, and that's kind of why, because you could launch all of they're all separate products. They don't like interface with each other directly. Like DeFi Box Swap is the swap, so that's only calculating the USDT and the EOS in their swap pools. And then DeFi Box USN is stablecoin generation, so minting stablecoins against EOS collateral. So for that one, just the EOS collateral in the pool that's minting stablecoins is being calculated. The DeFi Box lending is for lending collateral, which is a different bucket for deposits. And then DeFi Box balance, I'm less familiar with. I think that's their stable swap pool. So that would be like their USDT and USN swap pool. It's separate from DeFi Box Swap because it uses a different algorithm, more similar to Curve, because it's meant for like kind assets. So like either a stablecoin to a stablecoin swap, or like a wrapped, like Ethereum to another wrapped Ethereum, like where there wouldn't be any slippage. So that type of swap. So they're different products, but under the same umbrella. Kind of like if you think of like YFI. YFI has got dozens of different strategies, and each of them have their own like deposit contracts, and they're all kind of separated. So that's Denny could probably explain this much better than I, but that's the general idea, is that they're all separate products. They just happen to all live under the same umbrella. And any other protocol or any other application would be able to do the same thing if they had multiple protocols.
So they get rewarded 4 times.
But like if you combined all of their TVL, you would get the same number. So where it really will matter is there's a cap to how much TVL is rewarded. So the cap is set at 6 million EOS of TVL. And I guess DeFi Box Swap is the only one that's a little bit close. So that's where it would really kind of factor in is hitting the caps. So having it separated allows.
That's what I mean. They
caps.
can hit the cap on. They can hit the cap 4 times.
Yeah. So DFS, I think, has some lending products and things like that. So it really depends on also how modular their like whole ecosystem is. So I don't know why DFS. I haven't been following them too closely, but I know they have a lending product, for example, which is separate from their swap. So I could ask Denis about that. But any project that has multiple smart contracts, multiple deposit accounts, they're essentially separate products.
That makes sense. Cool. Do we know what Nudex's product is?
I mean, it's the only TVL that's counting for Nudex would be since it's order book driven, you would have to have like limit orders on file, and those are probably what's being calculated as their TVL. So like if you have buy limit orders using EOS or USDT, or sell limit orders with EOS or USDT, those are in a contract.
I was looking trying to figure out what they were doing, but okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah, because otherwise the EOS is like in your account. Like if you wanted to buy a box token off Nudex, like your tokens are either in your wallet or you set like a limit order and you're waiting for the price to like go down or up so it triggers your order. That would be the only way that your TVL would count on Nudex.
All right. Well, that wraps up the topics I had on my list. Time to open it up to the community. If you guys have some questions, want to say hi, share updates from your projects, we'd love to hear them.
Hey, this is Andrew. I have a quick question about the Yield Plus. And that's, as I understand it currently, it's EOS and USD. Any idea on timelines for bringing in other tokens to the sort of TVL figures?
I don't. So I don't know. The idea with using only the hardest assets are they're really hard to inflate or manipulate. So like any native token on EOS, for example, doesn't probably have the liquidity depth to really not be easily manipulated and moved. And also, there was a considered effort to not include derivative assets, because derivative assets, you could essentially turn $1 into $10 of TVL. And like there was a big story a couple weeks ago about the Solana DeFi ecosystem, how like out of $10 billion of TVL, it was really only like 2 billion. It was just being like TVL is being counted multiple times because of a derivative token. So a good example is if I deposit EOS collateral into Pizza Lend, I get a token back, a PZ EOS token, which is like it's redeemable 1-to-1 for EOS because it's just like a receipt token. Like it just signifies that I deposit an EOS into the lending contract. So the EOS in that lending contract is already being calculated for TVL. So as you start adding new whitelist tokens, like if you added a derivative token like PZ Pizza, and there was utility and you could like had a swap pool liquidity, it's really not new TVL. It's like a derivative of another TVL. So that's kind of like a house of cards that you'll see in a lot of other DeFi ecosystems. And it's really gameable. So that was kind of the reason to stick to hard assets. I would assume that the EVM token would likely be whitelisted, and then like wrapped. I don't have timelines on any of this, but I think like the first whitelisted assets you'll see beyond those would be like a wrapped Bitcoin or like a wrapped Ethereum or another hard asset with like a reputable bridge that's doing the wrapping. So not, I guess that's the answer. I don't have a date on the timelines, but as far as like adding the assets, it's really just sticking to really hard assets, staying away from derivatives, and staying away from tokens with like limited supply and limited liquidity, where you could really kind of manipulate the prices on them, because then you'd only be rewarding like this inflated TVL instead of the TVL that is actually important, and that's locked EOS. And USDT is also equally important, just because it's the on-off ramp for like fiat into the EOS ecosystem, and having more USDT on chain is highly beneficial for the entire DeFi ecosystem.
Cool. Great info. Thank you.
Got you, Chris. You were the one typing.
There's one thought that I had about that. This is Dogman, by the way, and I don't think it's too big of a priority right now, but something that I learned recently. Well, I was at a Fractally meeting, and Dan Larimer was explaining what he was perceiving in Ethereum was that the Ethereum community, in some sense, lost their independence to, like, I suppose, Circle, who does USDC, and whoever does Tether, because he was saying how, like, I don't remember exactly what it was, but basically so many of the Ethereum DeFi applications and the value in Ethereum was built upon applications that needed these stable coins to survive and thrive. And that if there's some sort of like government censorship for those corporations that issued the USDC and USDT, then that could essentially govern the direction of the chain with like issues like the merge and stuff like that. So I think that's something that's also good to keep in mind too. I think that in the long run, it's probably best to incentivize people to stake EOS as opposed to a stablecoin, which the EOS community doesn't have control over really. But that's also maybe just more of a long-term thing to keep in mind as well. Does that make sense?
Points. Yeah, it does make sense, for sure.
I mean, the issue there is with forkability, and Dan, that's like one of his big things is being forkable. And like stablecoins are the reason why, if there's a contention, like with the Ethereum merge, for example, like there's unlikely to be a contentious fork, because the true Ethereum will just end up being the one that USDC and Tether decide is the real one. Because if you split a chain and now you have two chains, well, you can't redeem your USDT or USDC on both chains, because Circle and Tether, the company, need to decide which of those stable coins which chain has the stable coins that they're actually going to like redeem for hard money. But it goes beyond just stable coins too, like wrapped Bitcoin, like WBTC on ETH. It's the most liquid, highest market cap wrapped Bitcoin that there is. And the company behind that I think it's BitGo that does the custody for WBTC. They're only going to, if there were a chain split with the merge, they're only going to redeem Bitcoin on one of those chains. So it's bigger than just stable coins too. It's just like wrapped assets in general, or any asset that's backed by another asset on some other chain. Like it makes it very difficult to fork, because the hard assets are only redeemable on one chain.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's a great point too. I hadn't thought about that with all the derivatives too. But yeah, I think in general, like
NFTs too. Like, think about it. Like, the NFTs are going to be split if you split a chain. So like, it's kind of like it's beyond stable coins. Let's just say that.
yeah, for sure, that makes sense. I think it could be thought kind of like a balance between like independence and like I suppose collaboration or like just potential to grow to some extent. Because like if you are able to get people to stake EOS as opposed to USDT, or then that gives the EOS community more independence. But obviously, there's lots of derivatives and stablecoins and stuff like that. So it's just a good thing to keep in mind too. I think to try to find the right balance going forward.
I want to ask one more thing is that, I guess, so do you think proof of stake would be much better than proof of work? Um, like, what are your thoughts and opinion about it?
Oh, pretty easy question. Proof of stake or proof of work? I mean, personally, my personal beliefs on that is I think there's going to be one proof of work chain that remains standing. That's going to be Bitcoin, and all other chains are going to be proof of stake of some sort. That's my opinion on that. I'd love to hear other opinions on it.
I mean, in terms of security, what do you think that this change would cause any problems in future?
Personally, I'm satisfied with the level of security that proof of stake seems to bring. Doesn't seem like it's had any flaws so far. But at the same time, in terms of crypto space, I think it's important to have different consensus mechanisms to have backups. Let's say if one of these consensus algorithm fails.
I think,
but I don't have any big thoughts on it.
This question to me always comes back to the use cases. And so if your use case is hard money and that's the only thing you care about when it comes to blockchain, then there's probably a strong argument that proof of work is likely better. But if you're exploring other use cases, which we should definitely be doing in our Ideathon, then you might need more performance. You need half-a-second blocks and faster finality and greater throughput, the ability to update code, like all of the things that EOS can do and Antelope makes possible. That comes with a trade-off. So again, it just kind of depends on your use case and whether you need this hard immutability factor, and that's more like hard money, what Bitcoin does, versus the performant nature that EOS/Antelope. I was about to say the word that can't be said.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the trilemma, right? The security, decentralization, and speed. Do you think every time you have to compromise one over the other? Like if you go increase speed, then you give up security, and if you go more centralized, you give up, speed or whatever it is. Do you think that there'll be a chain where you could achieve all three comfortably?
First, I'm not a technologist, so someone's probably better to answer, but I think like most things in life, everything is in the gray. We just get pitted into the binary, black and white, left and right, blue and red type of mindset, but really life exists in the gradient and the gray. So I don't think you'll find the perfect solution where you want to have your cake and eat it too.
I was kind of hoping Areg would be inspired to jump in here. I don't know.
I don't know if I want to start a really complicated and nuanced discussion about all that. I will say that there are trade-offs, but I think there's also, some mechanisms that have a better, I guess what I'd call security efficiency, which I'd describe as like how much money do you need to spend in a normal case to increase the economic cost of attacks. And I think proof of stake does a better job of that from a game theoretical perspective than proof of work. And I think like Vitalik has already talked about this plenty of, like he's done a great job describing that in a properly designed proof of stake network. Proof of work particularly, I think, has some concerns in terms of forkability, which I think is a very powerful mechanism to to make your network resilient against attack. And it also, I think, has some benefits in the sense that you can with the proof of stake system with slashing, you could design the economics such that the cost for people to attack, for example, to do a double spend, could be significantly higher than the cost of regular operation by honest actors. And I think that ratio is what really matters. That they're both, but there's of course all kinds of issues, like they're both subject to Pareto distributions and centralization of power. There's more subjectivity in proof of stake. There's more potential political kind of attacks there, I suppose, but I don't think proof of work is vulnerable. It's a very complicated topic.
Yeah, it'd be near impossible to create a proof of work chain that's secure. So like we have Ethereum, right? Pre-merge Ethereum and then Bitcoin, but there's other proof of work coins out there, but they're all really, really easy to attack if you actually wanted to do so by renting hash power, because the cost to rent equipment, and this cost is only going to go down once all of the mining equipment for Ethereum is freed up and it's no longer being used. That means all of the equipment that's still available you'll be able to rent the hash power even cheaper. So attacking any other proof of work chain after the merge will become even cheaper. So that's why with Bitcoin, it would just cost a lot of money to rent enough hash power to do anything with it. But as far as it making sense for any other chain, unless you could have a market cap in the many high billions, it's just too cheap to attack. But like everyone said, there's trade-offs. There's a lot of trade-offs to not using proof of work, and I think one of the interesting things we'll see post-merge with the move to proof of stake is that a lot of skeletons are going to come out of the closet with staking pools and things like that. So an example right now is Lido, their ETH 2.0 staking pool is 40% of the network. So they're already almost over 50%. That's just a single staking pool. That's why Coinbase is launching their own ETH 2.0 staking pools, because they see the issue lying ahead is everyone's kind of competing for this staking right now. It's almost all in Lido. So I think what we'll see is, just like with proof of work, where there's only a limited number of mining pools that kind of operate the consensus of the network, you're going to see the same thing with staking pools, but it's going to be much more obvious. And if you're staking into ETH 2.0 in a proof of stake network using Lido, you're essentially doing delegated proof of stake. You're delegating your stake to Lido, and Lido is staking to all of the nodes that they're either running infrastructure for or that their partners running infrastructure for. So I think you're going to see very quickly that ETH 2.0 is going to look a lot more like DPoS than anyone's talking about right now.
Fantastic answer. Yeah, thanks for that.
Hey, Ceskam here with Zack, and I have a question about the Yield Plus program. I don't know if anyone would be able to speak on this or would have the answer to this, but for projects that are dealing with a USD stablecoin, is there going to be significantly more compliance or more compliance issues that they're going to have to deal with than dealing with just tokens, just say like EOS tokens?
I don't understand the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question, but I believe that the answer is no. There should be no difference between whether or not you deal in EOS or in the stablecoin in USDT.
Okay,
but I'm
so
not really sure what you mean by the compliance side of things.
Getting into the Apple Store, getting into Android, extra loopholes for if you're dealing in a USD stable coin versus just a crypto token.
Can you expand on that a little bit in the sense that, are you saying Challengejack, and correct me if I'm wrong, let's say, are you saying Challengejack is currently not let's say, listed on the App Store, and it would want to be, and having yield would potentially jeopardize that? Or are you saying you currently are listed and adding that yield could potentially jeopardize that, or neither of the above?
Having a USD stable coin, so extra, maybe there's like more KYC, or there's more more compliance issues if you have a USD token versus just EOS tokens or Bitcoin or whatever.
I don't know. That's a good question. I think that that's something on your end you should look into, because that would be a separate case by case depending on the application. That would really fall out of scope of Yield Plus. And so those that register for Yield Plus are going to be, if they meet the thresholds, etc., and they're accepted, then they would get the yield. Whether or not on their end, if they add support for a particular cryptocurrency, if that impacts their business or their legal status, you would really need to speak to an expert in that field for your particular product.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to see if anyone had any general thoughts on that. So thanks.
I mean, if somebody else wants to chime up, does anybody else know whether or not that could potentially hinder anything that that Challenge Stack is working on, or does anybody know?
All right. Is this going to be our shortest fireside to date? We've been running these since December of last year, and I think only a few of them have been under 2 hours. We of course had our epic 7-hour long fireside chat that one time. It was pretty legendary. But yeah, if last call for people, if you want to jump on here, say hi to the community, ask a question. Last call for you to do that, and if not, we're gonna wrap it up early today. Yeah, Aiden seems surprised here. For a 7-hour fireside chat. I'll go look up the link. See if I can share it.
So common, like, I don't know, can be a basic question. How does ENF fund itself and the projects?
Sure, that's a really good question. Maybe somebody wants to link, if possible, Zack or Steph, if you can link the video that we did about this. It was a short, I don't recall if it was 5 or 6 minute video that really went into details. But the TLDR is the block producers reignited, or ignited, I should say, inflation going into the saving account roughly a year ago. And that inflation drips at a 2% rate. It goes into EOSIO.saving. The ENF can then request funding from that bucket. It requires a 15 out of 21 consensus approval. And this is how it funds its operations, essentially, and everything that is subsequent to that.
There you go, found that link.
Thank you very much, Steph.
Thanks for that. Thanks for explanation.
You're welcome. And if you want more details on where ENF spends money, you didn't ask that in your question, but we do produce quarterly reports where we give a very high level overview as well as very detailed overview of where the funds are going. And that is published on our website, eosnetwork.com, in the blog section. The last quarterly report was Q2 2022, came the second week of July. We're currently working on Q3 2022, which should be coming about the second week or so of October. Thank you very much, Steph. And that'll give you an idea of not only where the funds are going, but why they're going there, what are the initiatives that we're working on. It talks about previous initiatives as well that were funded and where they are in terms of status report, etc. So it's a really good high-level overview of kind of the more financial and roadmap side of things.
Great, we'll check it out. Thanks a lot for the explanation.
You're welcome, anytime.
And here's the link to the epic fireside chat of March 2nd.
The 7-hour chat.
It was a lot of discussion on Fractally. I think this was the fireside right after the white paper release, if I remember correctly. But I personally enjoy the 2-hour fireside chats a bit more than the 7-hour ones, and so does my girlfriend.
Maybe a little bit of, I guess, follow-up to Alpha that we gave last week. So last week, I'm not trying to drag this out, but I do see that we've got a little bit more time. We're pretty short on this one. And I see that there's 54 people still here. Last week, I believe it was last week, I announced that the ENF would be, or I would be personally going to South Korea to meet with Korean token holders, Korean developers. I'll be we're going to be having a booth at Upbit Developer Conference. I finally booked my tickets yesterday. That was quite an ordeal, and so I'll be heading to South Korea on landing on September 20th, being there until September 26th in the morning, flying from Seoul back to Singapore on the 26th, and alongside other members of the ENF will be in Singapore until October 2nd. Or so. So we'll be on the road for roughly that 2-week period. If any of you are in Singapore or in Seoul or Busan during that period of time, feel free to hit us up. And we'd love to be able to meet, talk in person and such. This is what these events are all about. And yes, Yana just published or just showed the link to the event circuit for the next 3 months. And so in there, I just mentioned Singapore. I'm not sure, is Korea in there? I'm not sure Korea's in there. There is also London Token 2049 November, which I will be attending. And outside of that, someone from the NF will be attending as a mixed match all of those. And so again, if we're nearby, please feel free to come and say hi. I would love to be able to have a chat with you in person, maybe have a drink in person finally. Yeah, feel free to reach out.
Hey, Morton, Matt D. Yeah, we just read pop tokens here on the Fireside Chat. It is kind of a nod to the POAPs that exist elsewhere in the ecosystem. But these pop tokens are proof of participation. So in order to prove that you were here right now for this Fireside Chat, you need to go in the PopBot chat and write your EOS account name with the money sign in front of it, and then that'll sign you up for the Pop Token NFT, which I distribute once this show is over.
So interesting little tidbit, Steph. You just mentioned that it is an ode to the POAP tokens, or POP, or I'm not too sure how to pronounce that. I was speaking with some VCs yesterday, and they actually brought up your POP token and how they like that initiative and how it reminded them of the POAP or POP token. And so the POP token is actually getting the eyes of VCs around the blockchain ecosystem. No joke. Full disclosure, I did not know what POAP or POP tokens were prior to that call yesterday. And so, yeah, pretty interesting.
Just name dropping that you're on calls with VCs in the context of the POP token. I like it. I like it a lot.
Well, that's alpha. There you go, alpha. I guess maybe, I don't know if Zack mentioned this earlier. I'm now just dragging this on. I'm trying to see how many people will stay and or if the number's actually increasing. We have been having...
We know how long. It's 7 hours.
Yeah, I have been having calls with a lot of VCs, but let me reposition this because we did talk about this. We did talk about this in one of the interviews I did the other day. The people that we talk to, we need to cater our message to them, right? Not everybody is where we are. The majority of people do not participate in these fireside chats every week. They don't spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year in EOS. A lot of the people that we are now talking to are outsiders to EOS. They are outside of the EOS echo chamber and or bubble. And so the message that we deliver to them and or the things that they would like to know about us are very particular to them. And I think I mentioned this, or I did mention this, I had a whole video about reaching consensus. If you want to share that early on when the ENF was formed, a big part in how you can form partnerships and or how you can create relationships is to meet the other person where they are. So you don't expect them to meet you where you are, you meet them where they are. And once you're both there, then you can start walking a path together. And so people may be questioning why we talk about certain things or we broach about certain subjects or that we spend some time talking about, let's say, the history of EOS, because it really depends where the other person is. It depends where that recipient is, where they are in their journey. And if ideally we want them to understand and appreciate and see the value that we have in EOS, the most effective way possible is to meet them where they are. And so we've been having a lot of calls with stakeholders across the ecosystem inside of EOS. But what's really exciting is we've been having a lot of calls outside of EOS. And I'm going to share a little story because this is part of the calls that we're having. I've been giving somewhat of an analogy. And I think it's really important because those who know and those who've been here, I hope will understand what that means, and they'll be able to relate to this, and they'll be able to relate why it's important to tell the story in that way. And so if last year when the ENF came about, EOS was very much in distress. EOS was a distressed asset, and I liken it to somewhat a patient in a hospital bleeding to death on the floor. And not only are people walking by this patient and ignoring the patient, but many people are actually walking by the patient, kicking and spitting on it as they walk by. Like, that's how bad things were. And it's really important to put this in context because when we're speaking to people, they don't necessarily know that. And depending on who we speak to, either they think that EOS was dead, and they're surprised that EOS is alive. That is one of the messages that we get when we reach out to people. Another narrative that we hear is that they associate EOS to being a scam. And it's really important to address that because you can't, that was a narrative and that is branding, that is real. That is something that we needed to address. That is something that we needed to confront early on with the ENF. And although the majority of the people on this call have heard this a year or so ago, some people are just hearing this for the first time. And so if the idea was that the the patient, EOS, a year ago was this just dying patient on the floor. People are walking by, kicking and spitting on it. Things have changed considerably since then. The patient has now been stabilized. The patient is now walking. The patient is actually in pretty good shape now. A lot of what we didn't have last year and what were gaps in our ecosystem have now been filled. A lot of those functions have now been automated. A lot of the foundations, and no pun intended, have been laid. And EOS now finds itself in a position where the patient is stable. A lot of that first year was all about stability, creating stability, putting EOS back in a position where it should have been 4 years ago. And it doesn't matter why it wasn't there so much so, because we could talk about that at length. What matters is that it's now there, that those foundations are now solid. That patient is now stabilized and that patient is walking. And a year ago, when Zack and I first started this, and for the longest time, it was only Zack and I, because the majority of people did not want to take that risk in coming back to EOS again. And so it's not so much by choice that we were only two. It was kind of the default. And so we had to go out to stakeholders, talk to them, understand what brought them here in the first place, perhaps 4 years ago, understand where maybe there were trends and patterns in terms of why people originally had an inkling for EOS and why they wanted to dedicate their time and or their assets to EOS. And so we started seeing buckets form. We started seeing patterns and trends on what really attracted people over. And that's really what formed the base of our priorities. And that's what we started working on. And for the first little while, I'd say 5 months or so, it was very difficult to actually get anybody on the phone. A lot of people just weren't interested. They'd been burned in the past for whatever reason, and they were just not interested in coming back. They were, good riddance type of thing. And I would say that in the last 6 months or so, and maybe more so 7 or 8 months or so, things started changing very rapidly. You saw it first very prominently with the coalition joining. And so people also question, why is there so much emphasis on the coalition? We're supposed to be EOS. We shouldn't be talking about others. You're missing the point. EOS never had allies. EOS never had partners. It's incredibly important for an ecosystem to be able to thrive, to have partners, to have allies, to have partnerships, and to have people where you're working on a common goal and you're able to split that workload and you're working towards a common vision. That is incredibly important, and that's incredibly bullish. If you can recognize how much value that has and how much space that creates for EOS to be able to innovate and to be able to take its rightful, respectable place again in the top ranks, that is a key piece. And so we started seeing that with the coalition forming. And then over a period of time, when we were reaching out to VCs and we're reaching out to externals, people outside of, and I mentioned this the other day, it's kind of the reverse onion. The idea being, we started off in a place and we've been having to add layers to this. We started off very bare bones. The patient is dying, it's bleeding on the floor, and we're adding band-aids to it. And then we're adding whatever it may be to it. And that one of that first layers that was really important, obviously the inner core is the community. Having these discussions with people on the fireside chat weekly, having a lot of our meetings being recorded, published, and available to all very transparently is a part of that too. Basically working on our inner core, this EOS community, the actual EOS community, was a key component to that. And two of the buckets that we created, or two of the initiatives that we created and or that we help fund and that we support, being Eden and Pomelo, really give a space for community members. And so our three pillars at the onset that we heard from stakeholders were that of funding, community, and development. And Pomelo and Eden really touch upon the three of those pillars in various ways, because it gives the chance to the community to have a voice and to have a weight with that voice and to be funded alongside that voice. These are buckets whereby I call them undirected funding, where the ENF sponsors, the ENF provides the funds, but the actual fund deployment and the ultimate fund outreach or where the funds land is directed by the community. It really does give the power back into the hands of the community. And the data that we're gathering from that is very, very relevant. It's extremely good. And so we started working on that inner core, working on ensuring that this community could start seeing value directly, very directly, and very tangibly again. That second layer being the greater EOSIO family, which was just rebranded to Antelope, and having gone through that process of rebranding as well, and why that was important, how this is important to these stakeholders as well outside of EOS to the other chains in the greater Antelope family, and why having that Antelope family is so important for EOS as well, and why that creates so much value for EOS. That was that second layer. And reaching out to VCs and reaching out to external partners afterwards, that let's say that third layer, give or take, or another layer that you're adding to the onion, we've seen a significant shift in the last couple of months, whereby a year ago, people wouldn't take our calls. 6 months ago, people started taking our calls, other foundations, other externals, not having to do with EOS, other third parties, outside of blockchain, inside of blockchain, but outside of our own larger, let's say, echo chamber within Antelope. And more recently, in the last month or so, a lot of these externals have now been reaching out to us. And the amount of leverage and the amount of value that they see in EOS now, having gone from a distressed asset to what they're now calling an undervalued asset, and what that means and what's currently being worked on with the different initiatives, and what we are setting ourselves up for year two. If year one was stability, year two is growth, and how we're preparing ourselves for that and what that means and how we actually implement that is all coming about. And you guys get a front seat at this. And yes, it might not move as quickly as you'd like, and you're watching the charts and it's creating a lot of stress. It does that for everybody outside of EOS as well. Our fundamentals and what we've been showcasing that we've been working on is being captured. It is being noticed by the outside. We're starting to see for the first time in years external media report on EOS favorably without getting paid, without getting prompted. This is unforeseen. This is new. We never had this before. People are starting to take notice that EOS is sitting on a tremendous asset, on a huge community of community members, of developers. There's tremendous value that's locked in here that is now starting to get looked at, and starting to look at from a VC point of view as well, because people can start to see that they can get in on the ground one of an L1 that is 4 years old, battle tested, no downtime, compared to, without naming names, competitors out there that have a significant hard time staying up and online. They're seeing this as a tremendous opportunity, and they're now the ones reaching out. And we now have the leverage in this market whereby everybody else is having a hard time because they got into liabilities during the bull market and they're not having to absorb those liabilities. We didn't have any. The EOS community didn't sit on any liabilities, which was one of the downsides because we didn't have partnerships, but those are now starting to form. And those, once they hit the power and what they will represent and the amount of value that they will add, will be nothing like we've ever seen before, because we've never been in this position before. EOS was never in a position to make partnerships before. This is completely new, that we've never had that opportunity. And I'll end with that. That kind of gives you a glimpse of what I've been working on in the background a little bit more.
But the important thing are the pop tokens.
But the important thing is that one of the VCs actually brought up the pop tokens.
And I just want to give a shout out to Marty here. If there's one person that should be taking credit for the pop tokens, I would have to give him that credit. We work on it as a team, but Marty is the creative genius behind a lot of our ideas. So shout out to Marty.
Oh, I can't take this. It's thanks, Steph. But yeah, the designer, Sharmona, shout out to her as well. And as we mentioned before, we came up to the pop token because of the POAP token. So crazy credit to the people who did the POAP token. It's just like,
we don't have as many creatives who do for every event one design, right? So the POAP token just says design for everything. But we might go there, we wrap it up, we come with a pop token, and maybe at some point we have like so many events and so many creatives that design like unique pop tokens for unique events in our community. And yeah, super excited that this actually makes the round outside of the EOS community. And if we have something going on for ourselves, it's this amazing narrative of turning this ship around. It's like, you know, I got goosebumps anytime I hear these stories, and if I'm imagining what's coming, it's really crazy. So good. Yeah, I don't know. I'm almost speechless. Thanks, Yves, for wrapping this up so greatly.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great little speech there. 20-minute, 25-minute. As long, and you were wondering how long people were going to listen to you talk. Come on, man! Of course they're going to listen to such a great speech. Yeah. So Patrick wants to be unmuted. Yeah, I had muted you earlier. Here we go. Oh,
Mel here. Can I have a
share
question?
your excitement? Yes, go for it. Who's this?
This is Mel, EOS London, and just a question for Yves. So, when you go to the conferences, you're going to be going to a fair few conferences you've got lined up and planned. So, what is the plan? What are you actually trying to achieve? What's the objective? Are we going for VC funding? What is it actually you're trying to achieve initially?
That's a really good question. There's a lot of things that we're attempting to achieve and are attempting to signal as well. So it's not just, let me explain. EOS has not been represented at any major blockchain conference now for roughly 2.5, 3 years. When the ENF launched, when Zack and I first started this, by design, and I've mentioned this before, we by design did not want to attend conferences for multiple reasons. One is we're a team of two. Whatever time that we spend on the road, and this is incredibly taxing and it really puts everything else behind, means that we weren't working on the core within the ENF. And so we just really didn't have the time. That is a huge reason. Another reason though, because there were some conferences that were geographically closer and wouldn't be necessarily as logistically challenging, was that if we were to attend these conferences at that time, what would we be talking about? We would have had very little track record with the ENF. There would have been very little track record of EOS in the last, at that time, let's say in the last year, 2 years or so. So there would have been very little to showcase or to talk about or to get people excited about and to get them to understand perhaps why EOS is the next home for their application. And this is really what we're positioning ourselves, and this is what we've positioned ourselves for in the last year, is so that when we start on the road again, and we're starting very, very, with a huge presence as of September, multiple events throughout the world nonstop, and this is going to be the new norm. We did partner with Zysan to be able to take on the European and Middle Eastern market. The idea with that is to create frameworks around what we're building with them so that ultimately we can perhaps have a plug-and-play solution whereby we can recreate what we do with them, but that we can do it in North America, South America, in Africa, in Asia, etc. Right? So if we can create a framework around that, everything that we do within the ENF, we're looking at how can we scale this further along, but we don't wait until the solution is complete before we try to do it. We iterate quickly, we iterate frequently, and we iterate on an evergreen basis, right? So we're doing that with Zysan in Europe. And the idea, to answer your question now, because I've positioned kind of why we haven't started doing that until now, is to signal to the market. So there's a component of signaling where EOS is back, EOS is here, the new EOS is alive. And when people start looking at this, they'll see that there's been a year worth of work that they unlikely have heard of, that they have not been knowledgeable of or not been aware of. And so when they look at EOS now, instead of seeing maybe a year or two of very little, they'll see a year of tremendous progress, of turning the ship around, of partnerships starting to form, of a thriving community that's back on track, of different initiatives, funding buckets that are live, that are scaled, that actually have deployed funds, that are not theoretical, they are running, right? And so from that symbolic point of view, that is something that we'll be able to showcase, and that's something that we want to be able to showcase. So that is one of the reasons why we're attending in person, is really to signal that EOS is back. EOS never left, but for a lot of people, it wasn't existed in the first place. So EOS is here, the new EOS is here. The other things that we want to focus on while we're there, of course, partnerships. So I just talked about how EOS is currently in a state whereby it started to make partnerships internally with all of the different providers that we've been working with in the last year within EOS, providing services, working on initiatives and such. So we started making partnerships at that level. Started making partnerships outside of EOS with that, the greater Antelope ecosystem. And with these events, with these conferences, a lot of the external partnerships, so new people that are coming from the outside, because that's ultimately what we need to work towards, is getting new people into EOS, getting new people building on EOS, seeing the value of EOS. Our goal is not necessarily to get the band back together. That's somewhat limited in terms of scope, and that's really thinking very small term. What we're looking to do, and you see that in the events that we're attending, is a mix between blockchain events and traditional Web 2 events. Because even outside of our own ecosystem and just inside of the blockchain ecosystem, getting people to come in, getting people to deploy on EOS, getting people to join the community in various ways, shapes, or forms, that's great. But where there's a tremendous opportunity is also to position EOS for the greater Web 2 space. Right now, in terms of blockchain developers, blockchain ecosystem, stakeholders and such, that represents an incredibly small percentage of the actual market share out there. It is still very much an echo chamber. So people like to say that EOS is in its own echo chamber, blockchain is also in its own echo chamber. And being able to position EOS for that market share so that when there's a new wave of participants that come, the EOS is there on the top of their list of one of the chains that they'd like to look at, explore, deploy to, join, contribute to, et cetera, that we're at top of mind. And this is what a lot of these conferences are built towards. Having an in-person presence, being able to make connections, being able to create the basis of those partnerships, being able to showcase what we're working on, what our roadmap is, how they potentially contribute, finding that intersect between what somebody is good at, what the system needs, and what they can get compensated for, and essentially showcasing that we have those initiatives in place to be able to do that for them in a very easy, efficient manner, and that we can scale. Those initiatives already essentially are scalable. That is really the goal of joining these conferences. It's ultimately to get more people into EOS.
What an amazing answer that was. Hope we recorded that. Thanks for that, Yves.
All firesides are recorded, and like you guys know, we do make some highlight clips out of some of the best moments from the fireside. Yeah. So
it's Patrick Novacrito. I just want to shout out, my second shout out is for Yves Larose, ENF, EOS Nation, all the work that you are doing. It's amazing. And I recommend all the people to watch the video with Zyzen Global, with Red out there pool, because he's a partner with ENF, and he will be on the event booths. He has the answer, the message for every people. That could be an investor, that could be someone interested about the tech, that can be someone that has still in mind the period with block one. So I encourage the people to see the video with Zyzen Global that was released last week, August 23rd. That was a nice interview, a great man, very reliable, and also a leader of Core Plus. So that was a nice interview. So I encourage you to see that. And yeah, EOS never dies. EOS is the most battle-tested blockchain. This is the settlement layer that it should be. And with Yield Plus, Trust EVM, all that together, we will have a more token value locked, something very reliable and with Antelope engine, Web3 solutions. So the future is great for EOS. EOS never dies. Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Question: you mentioned block one there, Patrick, and does anyone know, is profile still a thing, or have we got a variant of it?
All I got for you are sound effects.
Forget block one.
The answer is no. The team that was working on this left block one a while back, and it was never really a thing. That was just. I'll end it at that. Alongside everything else, it's something that did not materialize.
Block one is gone. Profile is gone. Yeah, I want to address like somebody asking in the chat about should we rebrand EOS? You know, there's so much baggage. I don't think so. As we just EOS is not block one anymore. We've been working on this. The ENF has been working for this on this for last year, and I think being in EOS and having this narrative and having this unique story really positions us in telling people what Web3 and what decentralization can do eventually. Sure, it might take some more time. You know, it's not as coordinated as some VC-powered L1s or other projects, you know, but in the end, in the long term, I think that's something that's really in our favor, that we can tell this story, that we can see like how things really develop, and that we can also create this like hard, tight-knit community that's taking responsibility and is staying even in hard times, right? I think that's really valuable, and I'm really proud to be part of this, and everybody on this call should be.
Let me address this as well, because I have a slightly different take on it. Everything that you just said, I agree. And I think that ultimately, that's likely what's going to happen. But let me give the caveat. So when we started off the rebranding process for EOSIO, which ultimately led to Antelope, one of the things that we knew is that if you look at the rebranding from a spectrum perspective, 0 being you do absolutely nothing, and 100 being you actually change the token ticker. That's pretty much kind of the ultimate. And so if somebody has actually something over 100, that's more than changing the token ticker, please chime in. But let's start off with the premise that 0 is you do nothing, 100 is you change the token ticker. The way that we've been approaching the rebrand and the way that we've been approaching market research is very meticulous. We have been, through the ENF, essentially gathering data as our existence accrues. We've been looking at how the market reacts to everything that we've been doing. And step by step, we've been moving closer to that ultimate, let's say, 100 of changing the token ticker. However, I do believe that we don't need to go that far. I don't think that the data right now showcases that that's the case. Having said that, where does it stop? Does it stop at 50? Does it stop at 60, at 70? What does that even mean? If 100 is maybe changing the token ticker, maybe 80 is something similar to Polygon and Matic, which we talked about months ago. Right now, the data doesn't seem to corroborate that we would even need to go that far. Having said that, the data may corroborate that, and we may determine that that is, up until where we'd like to go. Right now, what we've seen is that we just rebranded to Antelope, and so we removed that legacy of EOSIO. Another key milestone will be on September 21st when we hard fork away, or when we consensus upgrade, essentially, and that anybody who's not running Elite 3.1 would effectively be out of sync with the network. That symbolically has also a lot of meaning, because now there is no other alternative than to run Leap, which is the community led version of Antelope. And so people cannot be running, let's say, EOSIO 2.0.13 or 2.1 or whatever that may be, and still be synced with the mainnet. So it's very symbolic while also being very formal. We will continue gathering data to see how the market reacts and whether or not we need to continue down that path of rebranding, ultimately working towards that 100, which I do not believe we need at this stage, and even the 80. If I liken that to a Polygon/Matic type of rebrand, I do not believe we need at this stage based on what we're already seeing out there. Having said that, we don't know. So we continue accumulating data. Maybe those that believe that we need to go the full 100, maybe they will ultimately be right. I don't know. Our direction is guided by data. It's guided by the community sentiment. It's guided by what we are seeing when we're opening doors, when people are reaching out. It's guided by metrics, either through Eden, through Pomelo, through the grant framework, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's not necessarily decided. It's not done yet. But ultimately, as you guys are here, we will keep you informed about that progress. Right now, likely it ends with the hard fork, but I don't know. Ask me a week or 2 weeks after that hard fork how I feel about that at that time and what the market is telling us at that time.
Can I directly answer on that?
Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, well, I don't think the 100%.
It's just the answer was a little more complex than simple.
No,
so I just want to add that.
I get it. I think moving forward and like until you're maybe at the 100%, people won't necessarily think about blockchains and Web3 in terms of tokens or in terms of single blockchains. We probably will see meshes, and I think Antelope is working in this direction. So work on the Antelope brand, and potentially we don't need to rebrand EOS as like saying like a settlement layer.
EOS has already been rebranded multiple times over in the last year. A brand doesn't necessarily need to be the name associated to it. A part of that is the feeling that people get. That is just the token ticker. The brand of EOS is significantly different than it was last year. Even though EOS is still the word, the brand of EOS, the overwhelming, encompassing brand of what that represents, has changed significantly in the last year. It's not one event. It's not just the name. It's the feeling that people associate to when they hear that brand. And that has significantly changed. Whether or not it's changed enough is what we're not certain yet. And that's why I can't give you an answer as to when it ends.
Yes, and I 100% agree on this. I'm just saying, like, if we do a full rebrand, we lose all this story. We lose, like, there's a cut somewhere. I think that won't be transported. So that's the only thing where I think you don't need that. And I'm just was referring to the 100% changing the token ticker. That was the 100%.
I mean, that is a position, right?
Probably not.
That's it. So we hear that position on both sides. Some people say it's necessary, and other people say, like yourselves, that it's not. And you both people are likely right to a certain extent. What is our job as the NF is to figure out where's that threshold where that little extra incremental amount of effort is just not worthwhile. The ROI is just not high enough, that there are other priorities that can be undertaken, which will ultimately give you more points with a shorter amount of effort. Because one of the things that we've been doing very effectively at the ENF and that people have been recognizing is everything we've been doing is during a bear market. And the capital that we've been deploying and the strategic essential bets that we've been making have been very noticeable. One of the feedbacks that we get quite a lot when people from the outside look in is the surprise and the surprise, maybe not the right word, the astonishment. Yeah, they're astonished. To be astonished of how much we've done with how little capital we had. One of the inherent, I think, now values and properties of EOS and strengths, overall extreme strengths of this community is its frugality. It's having not had anything for 4 years and now making that dollar stretch as far as the eye can see compared to everybody else out there. And so in terms of competition, we've never had the luxury of having a treasury as a community and or having access to resources as a community. And so we've just grown accustomed to doing a lot with very little. And you cannot underestimate the power that represents, because it enables us to be extremely resilient, which is really our second superpower. This thing just won't die. And people are recognizing that the resilience and the grit in this community, alongside the actual tremendous skill sets that is contained with this community, is what overwhelmingly is giving that indication of an undervalued asset. And so those two things are so important as well as part of the overall vision, mission, and roadmap in the next year. That's what people are starting to see, and they're starting to see it in grand numbers too.
Just to add to that, I think that really well said. And when we look at the world at large today, right? How many people feel like an underdog? How many people feel like they're underrepresented and being taken advantage of by the man? And that's like the definition of this plight of the EOS community, where we've basically sticking it to the man now, going against our quote unquote creator and doing it on our own. And I think a lot of people in the world are going to be able to gravitate to this non-VC, like we didn't have an ICO. This is a community-led thing. And that I think is going to be a really great selling feature when we start to reach out and get the eyeballs and attention of the rest of the crypto world and just world at large.
Definitely, for sure. Very much agree. I'm not even sure what the question was anymore, and if I answered it. But I did go on a tangent there.
The answer is EOS never dies.
EOS does not die. Baby. We will not let it die.
This is not the time to ask questions. This is the time to do the things. And we are lions, power lions. We are not ships. We are just doing the things, doing the better collaboration with Eden on EOS, Eden Fractal, Pomelo, and EOS, Antelope as an engine, Web3 solutions, nice boots in Europe with Zyzen Global and ENF. So let's go!
Let's go.
Don't forget Yield Plus, mate. Don't forget Yield Plus.
And see the EOSIO Swiss workshop every 2 months, and see the last one, 8 interviews by Nova Crypto, 60 hours of work. See on buywire.news the last videos, and you will see the power of EOS.
Looks like I was wrong once again. It was not going to be a short fireside chat this week.
Sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. I'm Canadian, I have to say sorry.
Why stop at the moon when we can go to the universe?
All right, I have to go. Unfortunately, I have to jump in another meeting, but thank you all for being here, and always feel free to join these fireside chats. Ask any questions you want. This is what it's all about.
Look after yourself, mate.
The best beard in the galaxy. The best beard in the galaxy. Thank you.
All right, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you, everyone, for joining the Fireside Chat. Last chance to sign up for your POP tokens. I thought we were wrapping up 50 minutes ago, but I'm very happy that we went almost the full 2 hours. Great speeches by Yves there, dropping some alpha. And thanks to everyone who jumped in on the show today. Thanks for Yana on the production tables. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you are, whatever time of day it is. Hope you have a good one, and let's go EOS!
Go EOS! Go EOS!
Go EOS! Go EOS!
Go Eden Fractal!
London!
Go Eden Fractal!
Party!
Allez, 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 allez. EOS.
EOS, EOS, EOS.
We are the light.